What's up, guys? This is Weslee Weighs In. I'm Wesley Parker.
I am Bailey Parker.
And this is Tracy D'Arcy, the one and only.
Yes, I have a great intro.
Yeah, let's hear it.
For Tracy, okay? I was thinking about this earlier.
I'm a little nervous.
Okay? Tracy, she is a 3rd-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She is a brown belt in Judo, a professor here at our home gym, Keller Elite Martial Arts. She is the Dr. Evil to my mini-me, and is basically a co-parent to our kids at this point for the amount of time that she spends with them here on the mats.
Pretty much.
To know her is to love her. We're so excited to welcome Tracy D'Arcy
That's right.
to the podcast.
Wow, thanks for having me.
Yes,
So
we're
excited
so
to be here.
excited. Okay, I talked a little bit on the last podcast about how Tracy was one of the main reasons that I actually started doing jiu-jitsu. We learned I'm not very good under peer pressure, which has been used against me a lot of times since then. But yeah, so if it weren't for you, I definitely would not be doing any of this at all. So I'm very grateful to you. Maybe one thing you can tell us about is your experience as a woman starting out in jiu-jitsu, because I've always thought that was really interesting, because I know you didn't get to train with a lot of women when you were coming up.
Yeah, well, I started it when I was in college, and they used to separate. They would put all the women together and then all the men. And I kind of like beat up all the girls in that class. So I wasn't allowed to train with the girls anymore. So they made me train with all the guys. So I thought it was kind of like,
So how many girls were in the class? And was this like jiu-jitsu? I mean, you were talking jiu-jitsu, right? Like,
yeah, like it was at Texas Tech, so at my university. And I took it as a class for a semester as for college credit. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like when I did bowling, but she did
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, which
So that
is
was
way
your first
cooler.
introduction to,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so they told me you can either take running class or jiu-jitsu. And I was like, what is that?
You're like, that's karate.
So and fun fact, the next semester I took karate.
Really?
And then like no
I
hate
didn't
on
know
karate,
that.
but I was like, jiu-jitsu is 100 times better, and I would kill everyone in this room with jiu-jitsu, right? So
I
was totally
realize
convinced
that.
that jiu-jitsu, and that's where I got my orange belt. That's where the orange belt
Are
came
you
from.
going to tell the orange belt
I
story?
can, yeah.
Trent was listening to the last podcast where I said no hate on karate. He was like, nah, dude, hate on karate, man.
Hate on karate. It's fine.
I was like, no, I don't want to ruffle
It's
any
no
feathers.
fun if there's not some hot takes, you know?
Yeah.
That's what it is. But I think you should tell the orange belt story.
So
Whoa, we were on, she was talking
She
about.
literally brought up orange belt.
But before that, we were just getting into her
Oh yeah,
elective.
that's true.
Cut it
Okay,
off,
we'll
cut it
go
off.
back to the
So,
orange belt.
okay. So I fought like girls in the class, and then they made me fight like all the guys. And I was like, man, I really like jiu-jitsu. So when I moved back here after college, I started training with Roberto. And then I trained, it was right when we opened the school, so I didn't have a lot of training partners. And it was either Roberto or some guys, and most of them were wrestlers, so that was fun. And then my first roll with a woman was in a blue belt tournament. That's the first time I ever rolled with a woman.
Insane to me.
And like, I still know her and she's awesome, but I was 25 at the time, and they used to post your ages on the chart, right? She was like 38, 39. And I was like, I'm gonna beat this old lady up. Invited my whole family, and she wrecked me. It was I was so nervous, and like just had never experienced like rolling with women, which is fast and speedy and like compact usually. And yeah, it was a whole nother.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 25.
25.
So yeah, like a lifetime ago.
Was it just the two of you in that tournament?
That was it.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
That
What
was
kind
it.
of tournament was it?
It was Winter Wars. It was a Machado tournament, and it was just at like a high school gym. And man, I got beat up, and I went and cried to my mom, and just
What was
it was a whole thing.
what was like the meta for like gi and clothing back then? Like what were the brands?
Krugen, which was a Brazilian one, I believe. Patching your gi like NASCAR. Like I was covered in
Man, I like when I see the Mendez brothers compete, like old like footage, it's like super patched up.
Oh yeah, that
That's
was
how
the
it was.
style. You
Yeah.
put them on like the pant legs, and really like IBJJF they wouldn't regulate it like they do today.
Yeah.
So you just like threw everything on there, and you looked ridiculous, but you thought you looked cool. You felt cool, you know?
Like you're wearing a quilt of patches.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I kind of like the sound of that. That sounds like fun.
It was very, very fashion forward, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now on to the orange
The
belt
orange
story.
belt story.
Oh gosh. So in the university class, at the end of the semester, you got to actually grade yourself. So guess what I made that semester?
You
A
made
plus, like crushed it, right?
extra
GPA
credit.
like through the roof, right? But then after I wanted to keep going, so I signed up for the regular classes, right? And I didn't know it at the time, but they had like, the chart or the belts, the display, right? And you see like, white, yellow, orange, green, blue, just like the normal ranks. But I didn't know it at the time, but they put adults through the kids' ranks. So I see this job posting online years later for a jiu-jitsu school that's opening, Roberto's school. And I'm like typing up my resume. I'm like, orange belt in jiu-jitsu. Enter, send. And guess who got hired with an orange belt in jiu-jitsu?
Was your name on that?
Yeah.
I mean, was your age on the application?
I don't know. I don't think so.
How old
I don't
were
think
you?
It was like, I'm hiring a 16-year-old orange
No,
belt.
yeah.
Right? That's
No, I was what, 23, 24?
Did you
at the time?
interview
So-
for it? for
I
the
did.
job?
It was bizarre. Like it was funny story. So I walk in and it's a tiny place, nothing built yet, not even a mat on the ground. And I show up and I get all dressed up. I'm all nervous, ready to go. Guess who doesn't show up? Roberto.
No.
Straight up, like, did not show up in the first interview. So then I go home, like, man, I really want this job, And then he emails later, he's like, sorry, something came up, blah, blah, blah. And then I interview later and, I get the job. And years later, I was like, Roberto, what happened on that first interview? He's like, oh, I totally overslept. I just did not.
Y'all were using email back then?
Oh my gosh. Huh?
Y'all were using email back then? It wasn't the stork?
You are so
Ouch.
mean.
Ouch. Ouch.
Just kidding.
I mean, we did, fun fact, we did advertise in the yellow pages back then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
Really?
surprised.
That
by
doesn't-
There
that.
was
That does not surprise me.
no Instagram.
Yeah.
Facebook was relatively new. Like social media advertising was like in its absolute infancy. But yeah, you put like, yellow pages, just bare. It was just
Yeah.
bare
My
bones
kids would be like,
advertising.
what the heck are the yellow pages?
Yeah,
You know what
like,
I
they're
mean?
totally
I remember
irrelevant
the
now.
yellow pages, like
I do
going
too.
through the
Yeah.
phone book to find Parker. all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Parkers.
exactly.
Was the
Exactly.
school even open at that point, or was it just like
No.
starting to get it off the ground? Because it was just Roberto, and then he hired you right out the gate. And I mean, the two of you together have kind of like built the school to what it is after how many years?
Yeah,
we've been-
18 now.
18 years.
18 years,
Yeah. So
Yeah, we opened like in I got hired in January of 2007, and then we opened in June. So I spent
Okay.
6 months training with him, like 3, 4, 5 hours a day, just rep and rep and rep over and over. So by the time we opened, I had my blue belt, which was really quick in theory, but it
did you
was
keep
a
your
long
orange
time.
belt the entire time until he gave you
don't-
blue, or how did that
I-
work?
He lets you enter the first tournament as an orange belt.
Should have. Should have. Which is, I'm kind of disappointed. I don't know where the orange belt is. So.
That makes me so sad
know.
now knowing the story, and it's
know.
kind of an inside joke at the school that with those who have heard the story, and now everybody gets to know the story.
Oh, yeah.
And so sarcastically, we talk about how orange is Tracy's favorite color, even though it's not, and we're really just poking fun at her. But I truly am very sad that you don't know where your orange
I know.
belt is.
I would like to hang it on the wall
I
with
know.
all my others.
I
but
feel like it's a piece of history.
it is. It is. But I did
Part of the
feel
origin
very-
story.
Yeah,
Yes.
the origin. Origin.
Origin. Oh man, I could have made that better.
I know.
I didn't even pick up
Do
on
we need
that.
to redo that joke?
No, no.
Origin.
No.
Cut.
Tracy picked it up. Great. The viewers will get it.
That was good. And you're wearing orange today, baby.
I am.
almost.
Well, I
wonder
thought
why.
it was
It's a shade
brown.
of
It's
Brownish.
kind of brown,
It's-
but
It's brownish.
Yeah.
It's a brownish.
Yeah, brownish. It's
Yeah.
brownish.
My nails are definitely.
Wow,
orange.
Bailey, love it.
I know.
Love it.
Did that
My
just
favorite
for
color.
What about judo? When did you start doing judo? From the time that you started your elective as doing jiu-jitsu in college? When did judo come into the picture?
Judo, funny story. So one day in our second school, Mr. Dewan walked on the door just to start training jiu-jitsu with us. And he and Roberto looked at each other and went, wait a minute, I know you. And Mr. Dewan was Roberto's old judo instructor. So, and then he came in and started training jiu-jitsu with us. He got his black belt through Roberto eventually, and he also became our judo instructor. And that's when I started training judo as well. And then just went and started like competing, like as a green belt in judo, not an orange, green belt. But
So when
I
you
don't
said
even know
Mr.
the
Dewan
belts
got
in
his black belt, you want judo or jiu-jitsu, right?
Jiu-jitsu,
Okay.
yeah.
So did he already have his black belt in judo when he
Oh, yeah.
came over?
Yeah.
So I mean, I figured he'd probably been doing it for a while, but that was like 17 years ago,
Yeah,
16
he came
years
in
ago.
like, I'd say maybe, God, 6 or 7 years after we opened. He came in through our second school. So.
And what is his current rank now? Do you know?
Gosh, he's a 5th Dan in
Fifth Dan.
judo.
Yeah.
Which is
Super
very
impressive.
rare, very rare,
Wow.
and super impressive. And he just throws us all on our heads. It's just ridiculous. You think you're gonna you're like, all right, I got this.
I
You
know,
know,
because he's so cute and sweet too.
So
like
sweet.
he's just the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
until he foot sweeps you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then you competed at green belt a little bit.
Yeah, I did several tournaments at green belt. Won a lot of them with armbar. Used a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then got my brown belt, and then that's when I broke my foot and kind of, broke foot, shoulder, just back-to-back injuries, and just my goal is to get back to judo this coming year. So that's what I really want to do.
Oh.
Yeah.
So from 18 years when you started to where we are at now, how much has, let's just start with like the kids programs. Like how much has the kids programs changed from what it was back then? Like I know you've mentioned some stuff about funny belts,
Oh, yeah.
to like what it is now.
Oh yeah, there was nothing was regulated. Like we made up, and every school made up their own belt system. So ours had white, yellow, orange, green, red with blue stripe, and the big one of all, the camo belt. Yeah, the camouflage belt. And every school did it. Like you see all these kids with camo belts. It was just completely unregulated. IBJJF wasn't relevant for the kids at all.
It was for adults, right? Just
Yeah, it was
not
still
for
pretty
kids.
big,
Okay.
obviously pretty big for the adults, but it was nothing to do with the kids. And then actually we, used to just do, and then we cut it down, and it was like white, yellow, orange, green, and there was no gray. So suddenly you start seeing gray belts in tournaments, and it's like, what the heck is a gray belt? Yeah. And then finally, everybody nowadays is on board with the same belt system. So that's kind of nice.
Interesting. So what did they do in tournaments or whatever when kids compete? Was it just based on how much experience, intermediate and novice? And
Yeah, like that. How many years and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Novice, beginner, intermediate, advanced. So
That's so weird.
So you see all these camo belts.
Yeah.
Scrapping,
Yeah. I saw an interview with Tynan where he talks about even in Brazil, there wasn't this belt system. He had to fight older guys that were higher, been doing it way longer than him, stuff like that. So whenever I heard that interview, I was curious, and we kind of talked about it a little bit. That's pretty interesting. What about, were the belt ranks for adults have always been the same, like white, blue, purple, brown, black?
Yeah, for sure. But it's nowadays you get these generation of kids that they're blue belts, and they're some of them are the black belts of the 90s.
Yeah,
they're just unbelievable. They're better than me. I study them. They're so good. And that's, I think it's such a weird thing because you look at karate, you look at judo, and all their systems are more or less the same over the years, whereas jiu-jitsu has completely evolved and changed, and is continually changing, and you have to keep up, otherwise you get left behind,
Yeah.
And that's a big, I think for those of us that have been black belts, I've been a black belt, over 10 years now, and it's you can either say, okay, I'm a black belt, I know it all, or just kind of say, hey, I need to study, and I need to keep up, and continue to progress too.
Well, especially now, because I think the sport is changing because it's getting a new level of popularity recently, which just means everything's changing at such a rapid pace, even compared to what it was before. I was going to go back to your crazy good blue belt thing, because I've always thought this is crazy, that pretty much any kid, once they turn 16 and they get out of the kids belts, that they all just go blue. It doesn't matter what skill level they're at, and I've just always thought that that's absolutely crazy, because some of them can be so good, well beyond a blue belt, but they all put on a blue belt at the end of all of those years of training. Our kids who've been training since 5.
You can create a very huge skill gap with that. You know what I mean? You could be 15 years old and just started the sport for 1 year, and then now you get your blue belt at 16,
Yeah.
and you're going against someone who was 7 years old,
Like our kids.
and they're green black belt, you know, and they've been to all the majors, placed at all the majors, and you stumble across this guy at a local world league where their team
exactly.
Goodbye.
It's like,
now you're somebody's highlight reel.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yes, I know. I think that's why you've said before that like adult blue, it can be the hardest division to compete because you have no idea what actual skill level these people are that you're walking in against, even though that you're the same belt level. I think that's crazy.
Yeah. Which they should change, which I do think you should regulate it to maybe like blue belt with 20 years experience.
Right?
Versus 1 year.
Should be a separate category. I mean,
yeah.
the point of sport is for competition and I mean not the point, but like of competing is for it to be competitive. You take the competitive aspect out of it, I think that that doesn't help the sport also grow. I feel like, you know, so
it's no fun for those new people who are like, I kind of like this and want to like start competing.
I think I'll wait till I'm 30.
I know. I'll just wait till masters.
Would be a blue belt from 20 to 30.
Yeah, I think that sucks.
But what about changes? Have you seen any changes as far as like the way the schools ran, like the way from what y'all did back then versus, like, or maybe some like things that y'all saw and had to adjust to over the years?
Yeah, I mean, like even in our first school, we started in a tiny little place. It was like 1,800 square feet, and we just instantly grew, and like our kids program exploded, and that's where we had to start like cutting it into like age and then level and then all that, which is pretty standard, somewhat standard nowadays. You still get some schools that are like one kid's class per day.
Yeah.
And good luck everybody, you know. So
that happened quick. Like it like turned into nothing to something big really fast.
Yeah. It was weird at first because nobody really knew like what jiu-jitsu was in the beginning. Like we had people come in and look in the windows. We had a lady come in and she asked if we were a pool supply store, if we sold pool supplies for like swimming pools. She like saw the mats and she's like, "Oh, this is for pools, right?" And we're like,
I don't even understand.
I was like, it says jiu-jitsu on it.
I don't understand
why would you,
how she got that.
Yeah, it was
Maybe
funky.
mats are like pool noodles or like floating devices.
Yeah, and we had like some of the kids stuff like in the front window, like some of it, but
Okay.
not where you would just be like, this is clearly for pools.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
that was unique for sure.
Fascinating. I mean, how much do you think that has changed from then to now? Because I feel like people still don't, like if you just ask a random person, they still don't really know the difference between jiu-jitsu or judo or I think wrestling. They're like, okay, I kind of know
people
what
who
wrestling
watch
is.
UFC.
Yeah.
That's a huge audience. I mean,
Those aren't my people, so I can't.
I describe it to them like people that don't know. I say, in the UFC where they go on the floor and they roll around, that's what we do. That's us.
Okay.
So and that usually kind of clears it up.
Okay.
But I'd say like it changed, I'd say for women, especially when Ronda Rousey came around, because then women saw that like you could be, a normal looking woman. You don't have to be like a She-Hulk. And you could be successful and you could be tough and, and then people understood what judo and jiu-jitsu are a little bit better. But nowadays, I mean, you look at the number of jiu-jitsu schools around, every city. It's like karate used to be. There's just one on every corner now.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more mainstream than it has ever been, for sure.
Yeah. So what about for the schools that are starting up new and they're looking for that kids program to like blow up? What was it that like made it blow up back then?
I'm not giving away our secrets.
No. But do you think it was like cultural? Like, because like in my mind, I would think it wouldn't be very big back then because like it's only grown. But I guess the thing that you have that's a problem would be like the competition constantly because there's one on every corner.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, even back then too, I think every school has its own vibe and its own feel. And that's like part of like Roberto's genius is that he always instilled in me is that kids think in cartoons. Like their brains are cartoony. So if you teach, a lot of the kids, the majority, not all, but the ones that are kind of competitors or more professional, you can teach them more like adults. But the vast majority, they're just hobbyists. They do it for fun a couple times a week. It's like it has to be cartoony and fun. And we do like our animal exercises and our animal games and that kind of stuff. And I think that's a big appeal that we've always had is that it's very, approachable, it's not intimidating, and kind of everyone can kind of find their way in our school too. You have, you know, the kids that want to compete, the kids that don't, you know, the kids that want to teach. There's always an outlet for all of them. I think that's really important. So,
yeah, I know that the method of teaching for brand new kids was really, I loved it when we first came and tried it out here, because I remember comparing to other places that we had tried and just feeling like even I wasn't really tracking with what was going on. It just seemed so easy to understand and putting it on their level. And I think we've both laughed that we sometimes use some of the same things that the kids use to remember to remember things. So yeah, I think it's a really great way to make sure that somebody who's brand new and has no idea what's going on can easily understand and feel like
especially for those little kiddos, when you come up with the really unique names, you know, and they understand based off the names, they're really good.
Yeah. The little itty bitty ones are so cute.
I know.
So cute.
What about issues? You like problem people that come into the gym, you know?
You're allowed to tell us about our own kids.
Yeah.
You sure do get, I mean, it appeals to so many people, so you get a lot of personalities. And like our gym, what I've heard from others that have cross-trained, they say this is the gym with the least amount of drama that I've ever experienced.
Interesting.
It's like, yeah, we try to, like for us, we stay very professional. We stay very focused on jiu-jitsu, where everybody's welcome. It's like the whole reason we're here is to train and have fun and get better, you know, and be professional at the end of the day. And if you're, you know, if you deter from any of that, that's when I feel like you get drama and problems. And, you know, the main thing, like, always is like, you know, telling the parents no coaching, you know, because everybody wants to coach, and it's like, save it for tournaments. You got to save it for the tournaments, you know, otherwise it does create like an animosity between, you know, the parents.
It's so frustrating, though.
Yeah, because see, you've experienced too, right?
Yes. I mean, even the parents that like do their best to be involved, you know, sometimes they just don't know what they're talking about.
Just stand up.
Yeah,
just get out of there.
Yeah, get out of there. Or even when like you're using right names, but like, no, there's not the time to do that.
Scenario.
Don't do that.
Wrong scenario. Or you get the ones at the tournaments are like, just break it. I'm like, it's a naga. It's just naga.
It's not that
serious. Please don't.
This is black belt adult worlds right now. Come on.
Exactly.
Little Jimmy has to win the fight.
Like you can literally buy the naga gold medal. It's okay.
So,
have you noticed that? Like, has that been different for you now that you're coaching the kids too, like being just a dad on the outside and wanting to teach and coach them versus now sometimes being out there coaching and then sometimes being back on the other side again? Yeah,
it's an interesting perspective, because I also was never at any point one of the parents that had no experience, because I had judo experience, I had boxing experience, and I had a decent enough of judo and wrestling experience that I felt like I definitely didn't know a lot of what was going on the ground, but like when it came to throws and stuff like that, you know, I was very involved, and it was hard to not coach, especially like me and Elric. We were always like very competitive. And when the girls, Aurora and like Lennox, would go with each other, we'd be like at the, you know, the border. Come on, go, let's go. I'm like, crap, we need to show. Tracy's gonna get on this.
Stop coaching. Tracy's gonna yell at you.
These guys again.
100%. But now like being on the mat, it's frustrating sometimes whenever. It doesn't happen too often lately, though. Like with us, like I just don't feel like. I feel like whenever Lennox first started, I was doing that. I was one of those parents, you know. And me and Elric were, and eventually I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stop, and I chilled out, and then
is it easier
got plugged in.
That you're like, now that you're coaching and dealing with that, and you experience the other side of it, is it easier now for you to keep your mouth shut when
I'm
you're just a parent? Yeah.
Oh heck no.
No.
Because now he has authority here.
Yeah.
He can't.
That's what I mean, like,
I'm just gonna take off my shoes and step on them.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of. Yeah.
Actually, I tell Tracy all the time. I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm overstepping my boundaries. You know, like I don't want to overstep or anything, but you know, that's part of me feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
But
no, not at all. And I've said that too. It's like like we've talked about, like the new generation you guys have such access to so much information that I didn't have. Like we would get literally books
Yeah.
and VHS tapes. Like, oh, I'm really aging myself, but
Hey, I watched VHS too.
We watched VHS too.
yeah, on the black and white TVs. No, I'm kidding. No, but yeah, but it's like now, yeah.
When you rode your dinosaur to
Yeah.
school. Huh?
And the interview over. Bye. No, but like it's now you can go on Instagram and you see what anybody in the entire planet in jiu-jitsu is doing. It's right there for you to study and to know.
Yes.
And it's like, it's incredible. You get everybody's highlight reels and you can just take from that everybody's A game and build yourself into this just like Frankenstein of everybody's A game jiu-jitsu, which I think is incredible. So
something I find really unique in jiu-jitsu, and I don't know if it's changing in boxing, but like in boxing, the coaches they hold their stuff tight. Like they don't want people knowing their techniques. They don't want people knowing their tricks. And in boxing, you know, the ecological thing is like real big right now, you know, but like in boxing, they have that. Like they just don't call it ecological. They do all kinds of different drills that are really like games essentially. But it's just not like, they still full contact spar and everything. But, you know, they're like, you know, I'm not letting nobody see that. They won't even let you film sparring, like especially big name sparrings, you know, and definitely no cameras, none of that. But then you got like in jiu-jitsu, you got like the AOJ app. I know Lachlan Giles has an app, you know, and I love that part about jiu-jitsu is like, because of that, I can grow at such an exponential rate. And maybe it is becoming that way in boxing. I know there's a lot more channels. The problem is like knowing what's good and what is like, you know what I mean? And that's true in jiu-jitsu too. Usually the ones that are decent, you got to pay for them, you know, like AOJ plus, you know? So with those in jiu-jitsu, it's like, if it's comp tested, like at a high level, IBJJF, you know, it may be technical, but you can trust it, you know? And in boxing, and there's like there's 1,000 different ways, and the coaches are stark on what they want. You know, they're like, no, never do that. That's stupid. Don't do that. You know.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of jiu-jitsu schools, you do have some things where you're like, that is just a never in my book, you know, on certain techniques. But you do also have to be open to change and evolving and, you know, growing too, because, you know, it's like that. You either stay here and everybody climbs and you're just kind of looking at everyone, you know, or you can get on board and, you know, that's why I like, even when I roll, I try to be like the example to the other like black belts too, is like, roll with these lower belts, go get tapped out by them, go get better, because you are getting better. And that's always your real opponent. It's not, you know, these guys, it's like, it's yourself. Are you progressing from where you were last year? Like that's the big goal really. So
I was talking to Trent and we were kind of comparing like boxing and judo and jiu-jitsu together. And the analogy, I think he said it. Yeah, it's like, boxing and judo are kind of like a deep trench you're digging in a straight line with like short little trenches off to the side. But like jiu-jitsu is like a giant tree with a ton of branches where it's like there's 1,000 different ways you can accomplish this one task, right? And boxing is like the jab needs to be this way and there's like only so many set punches that you can throw. Like in comparison, like to a boxer who doesn't know jiu-jitsu, they're like, oh man, there's a ton of combinations you can throw. But when in comparison to jiu-jitsu, I mean, there's like a million different ways to get to a submission, a sweep, you know, the back take.
Well, I think,
and details to everything, you know.
To your point, and tell me if I'm crazy, but I feel like in boxing, for example, at some point it comes down to your own level of like athleticism and mastering the sport. Like you said, like there are so many punches. There's only so many combinations, but it's about your skill and how you execute all of those things. But like you said, jiu-jitsu, there's so many different avenues and you can explore all of them. You don't even necessarily have to explore all of them. You can kind of decide like which ones fit into my game, which ones do I like, and then you just build off of that. And there's all these other things that you haven't even explored or trained before, you know.
Well, it's like, what's the new meta, you know, of every few years? Like years ago, it was, you know, the rubber guard with Eddie Bravo. And then it became like Marcelo Garcia's X guard system. Then Keenan Cornelius came out with the worm guard and all the lapel stuff that no one had ever really played with or seen. And so he threw that into the competition scene and everyone's like, what is this? And now you have kids.
Did you try to like ban it for a little while?
I don't know.
Or something like that? Yeah, maybe. I heard that like they were talking about having restrictions on lapels.
Oh,
and that's what I heard. I swear, I either read it or saw an interview.
We need note to selves that we need to hire somebody to sit behind and Google things like this, like Joe Rogan has.
Yeah, right?
Like Joe Rogan's assistant, yeah.
Can you look that up for us?
Yeah, look it up real quick on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting to see like all the metas, but then you see, like kids nowadays, like our kids comp team, they know worm guard. Like that just started to exist when I got my black belt. Like it's wild just how much, like you're saying, like a tree, it's gone just like Amazon rainforest. It's just, it's incredible how much it's grown.
And it's still growing. You know? Like with all the leg walk stuff now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that didn't used to be as big of a thing, did it?
No, even if you watch like the old ADCCs, like even if you watch like, what was it, like Cobrinha versus Rafa Mendes, like it's an amazing match, but you don't see all the leg entanglements that you see nowadays. It just wasn't such a thing. It's completely different now,
Which I feel like is daunting, but it's also fun in the sense that we all stay in the same boat of learning constantly. Whether you're a white belt or a black belt, you're still just learning and growing and improving all the time. Like it literally never stops. There will never come a day where you're like, I've mastered all the things.
Yeah, that's unique about jiu-jitsu. I feel like you can't master it. There's just too much to know. Like even the best in the world, they may not know this little avenue of something that this guy knows, and he doesn't know of his, and vice versa,
Yeah.
So,
a lot of deep channels to jiu-jitsu. That's why I like it so much. I've had a bunch of friends lately, like because of the podcast, like Terry Christinelli. This is kind of like a tangent, but jiu-jitsu has the effect, like it's very welcoming to like people who don't do like a lot of contact sports or did many sports at all. But I got exactly. I got several friends that have hit me up and be like, man, keep up what you're doing, man, because of your post, because of what you're doing with your girls and your son. Like I put my kids in jiu-jitsu and
that's awesome.
like out in San Antonio and Austin, stuff like that. So like jiu-jitsu, that's the cool thing about it. And for athletes who like me in boxing, like my time, to be honest, some of the coaches are like, dude, if you're not going pro, you're wasting our time right now. Like, they are.
Yeah, you've dealt with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, like, unless you're paying your membership, like, I'm not, because the coaches, they want you to go pro and they want you to travel and make the money and they want to get paid too, that's what they're looking to get paid to do, because they get paid a percentage of what you make when you fight, Yeah. So, and you make it big and you're a world champion, now they're making a bunch of money too.
Yeah, but if they're just spending all their time in the gym training you to not really do anything with that, then that's time they could have been spending with somebody else.
And that's the thing about it's a culture. It's a difference in culture.
Bye guys, I'm gonna go coach boxing now and become a millionaire.
Trying to make some money.
It's true though. I mean, that's one of the things we've talked about, how the culture is so incredibly different, and it's so much more welcoming, and it's like it's for everybody versus.
And it's not like I don't want to paint like this really narrow brush or broad brush, but it's not like that everywhere, The coaches, my coach Sheldon, man, I mean, he didn't care either way. I think if I went pro, I mean, he's also family, so I might be a little biased.
Yeah.
I mean, he
I'm stuck with this one.
He definitely wanted me to go pro. I know he was disappointed when I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go pro. So, but it's too old, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. That doesn't have to be the case everywhere for it to be kind of more of the norm. Like that, it's more normal that you would experience that in the boxing world than you would in jiu-jitsu for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now back on like starting school, kind of like move back over there. Any horror stories from?
Ooh, fun.
Oh God. Some from the kids. You get the pukers.
Ew.
That's extra gross.
That happens.
Like we'd find like a random just tooth on the mat.
Ew.
Really?
Oh yeah, the other day one kid, his tooth just fell out.
Yeah. I had one in my private lesson today.
Oh,
they were
really?
training and her tooth fell, and always my first question is like, was that a baby tooth?
Right.
Yes. And they're like, yes.
Was
I'm
that
like, okay.
already loose?
Yeah. Sure. Okay. But mostly that. I don't know.
Anytime you're dealing with kids like that, it's like you never know what you're gonna get. I feel like, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Adult wise, very rare do we have any just like spats or anything. I mean, there's been a few. I think any gym, you get a big tough guy who wants to come in and prove himself and thinks he's the toughest thing alive. And oh my God, Roberto, fun fact. fun story. So one time we had this big guy, ex-football player, just massive dude, and he was a white belt. And I guess he tapped out one of our blue belts. And he'd been training, both had been training with us for quite a while. And he's like, "Give me your blue belt." And Roberto's like, "Hey, yeah, man, come here. Come to the office. Come to the office." So he's like thinking he's going to get his blue belt. And we had these little, for the kids after every class, we had a little stamp, and it was Snoopy. And he's like, let me see your hand. He Snoopy stamps the guy's hand and sends him on his way.
That's
True story. Yes, great job. You tapped a blue belt. Here's your Snoopy stamp. Go.
That's hilarious.
So, you know, but
That's hilarious.
I think also like Roberto sets the tone too. Like he's not a big showboater. He's not loud. Like, you know, he's different than a lot of the instructors, and that kind of sets the pace for what's expected here too. Is a lot of just, to me, professionalism, really.
Yeah.
And I was telling him too lately, I was like, I'm so proud of like how even he has evolved, you know, with ecological training, with us doing the 1-2 class, you know, like stuff that, you know, especially for him and even me, like after 18, 20, you know, almost 30 years for him teaching and training, to be open to change and evolving your school is really important, I think. And we were talking the other day too, like how interesting it is that people coming into this nowadays or in the last couple of years see it completely different than we do. Like to you guys, the standard is like, you know, the Mendez Brothers school, the whitewash schools, the very professional, minimalist looking schools. That was not a thing prior to the Mendez Brothers. Like it was just not a thing at all. And it's become so mainstream that it's interesting that that's, you know, how
it becomes like expected that this is what it would look like or whatever, but that's brand new for those who have been doing it for a really, really long time.
Yeah, we always get the comments of like, why are the mats green and yellow? But that's what the mat colors were back in the 90s in the IBJJF. That's
really?
So we're like
instead of the blue and yellow, they were green and yellow?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I'm trying to like think back to videos. I don't remember seeing.
Yeah, like the old fights. If you look at like some of the big ones like Jacare and Roger Gracie and Tererê, all the Brazilian, all those. Look at the mats; they're green and yellow.
Green and yellow. Oh my goodness!
Did y'all see a big uptick whenever Gracies were going through the UFC in jiu-jitsu?
Well, we're not that old.
Oh really? I'm just saying I don't really know. I don't have a frame of reference for when that started. I don't know the year that
was
all
in like
started.
early 90s.
Oh, okay.
Like I was 8 or 9 years old.
Oh, really?
I'm
Okay.
not that old.
Yeah, see,
He's not that
people are gonna
old
watch
enough.
this and be like, "Dude, you have the worst knowledge
You
of
are so
jiu-jitsu."
stupid.
I know.
I rode my dinosaur to the UFC match, you know.
Okay, man, I feel like an idiot now.
No, it's funny.
So, well then, what else? No,
Not really. I think it was really when like Ronda Rousey came on the scene.
Okay.
Like people really started going, wait a minute, this is when women's jiu-jitsu. I mean, women's UFC was not a thing. There was Gina Carano, like she came in, they did some small things, but when Ronda hit the UFC, that's when I felt like jiu-jitsu for women really took off and became okay for more women to start training. They understood it was just not so brutal. I mean, it is brutal, but it's fun. You know?
It's fun. I promise.
It is.
What about for whenever Roberto started training? Like, I mean, when did he? How far away was when he started? Like the UFC, Gracies and stuff like that. I remember being young and I didn't have no frame of reference, but I remember seeing the videos.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how far before my time it was when I was watching these videos.
Those were in the 90s. I don't know.
When did Roberto
That's a
start
lot
training?
of math, Wes. I'm not good at math.
Yeah, definitely don't want me doing that.
Yeah, I don't know, but back then too, it's interesting because like the UFC back then, you have to remember it was art versus art. So it was karate versus, you know, kickboxing. It was karate versus boxing, right? And that's why jiu-jitsu became such a thing, because jiu-jitsu beat everything, you know? So that was always, you know, and that's what, like, Roberto will tell you, that's what convinced him that, like, wow, jiu-jitsu is awesome. It beats everything. And he had done karate and judo and then got on board with jiu-jitsu after that, so.
So this may be a dumb question. So then, like, MMA was not a thing, really?
Not as it is today.
Okay.
Like today, it's a big, like, mash of everything.
Yeah,
like
they
everybody
squish it all
trains.
together.
Yeah, everybody trains jiu-jitsu. archery, judo, or wrestling, you know.
But it was a lot
From the
more like
beginning,
segmented.
It was like literally art
picked a
versus
lane.
art.
Yeah.
That's
like in the first and like the actual first UFCs.
yeah.
There would be like a boxer comes in and fights versus.
So it was like your stereotypical like, oh, if you put up who would win.
Oh yeah.
That's what was the, and there was no weight classes.
Oh.
Yeah, so it'd be like this giant 300-pound man versus.
Really?
Yeah.
And just no
Gracie.
rules. Like you can knee the guy,
Yeah,
you could kidney
everything.
kick him, whatever you wanted. Like
I poke.
Okay.
Straight up, Three Stooges.
Three Stooges, yeah. We'll teach you that one. We'll teach you that one day.
Okay. Oh.
Back
very
whenever you were watching black and white TV.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Petting my dinosaur.
Oh, that's very interesting. So then when did MMA actually really start to become a thing? Like when they really started squishing it all
I
together?
remember whenever I was like, me and Trent were like 11, 12, like so early 2000s, right? You'd probably say.
Yeah, maybe.
Is that your
I never
perspective?
really,
Mostly
I didn't
from
know it
UFC.
existed.
Really?
I didn't know a lot of things existed prior. Like I didn't know tournaments existed when I started training jiu-jitsu. Like much less what the UFC was. Like I had no clue about, you know, I did Taekwondo. Like everybody, I did Taekwondo when I was like 8, and that was my whole frame of reference for martial arts. So I don't know. I never watched it. I didn't even know it was a thing. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that makes sense when you just did it in college as an elective.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I gotta do.
Need my credit.
You just
What's
fall
crazy
into
though
it.
is that it was even far enough ahead for
That is
colleges to
crazy
make
to
it an
me.
elective. Like that's crazy.
Like I feel
How
like
cool would that
most
be now?
colleges, I mean,
Have
I
no
don't
elective for
know that
jiu-jitsu
that's
now?
it definitely wasn't a thing when I was in college.
They have judo,
but-
like collegiate level judo.
Yeah, but not just like even that is different. Again, it was like my bowling league that I always say I bowled in college, but I was just we just bowled one game a day, and it was my athletic credit in college.
Super athletic.
It wasn't anything. We've covered the fact I'm not an athlete. We have covered this. But so I assume that your jiu-jitsu classes, it wasn't like, oh, we're super competitive, and it was just like a fitness.
oh, it was competitive. Like
Really?
I rolled hard. I don't know.
But I mean, the goal was not like, oh, we're part of a team and we're going
No.
out and competing. It was like, we're
No.
learning it and this is our
And what
you know, our
level were
class
these
and-
people in this elective? Like it couldn't have been. I mean,
It was all people in my university, all people my age.
But it's
you
like
know,
it couldn't
just
have been
college
longer than
students.
like 4 years of experience, right?
What do you mean?
If it's an elective and it's like, I mean, they're going to be
Oh,
in
but they
college.
were an established school already, so they
Oh.
had like normal student like us. Like if we had,
Okay.
you know, gotten into a university, you'd have just random,
Yeah.
you know, 18, 19-year-old white belts
It'd be like
coming
if-
into a class.
If they got affiliated and said, we
Right.
want to offer,
Oh, okay.
jujitsu at our college, can they come and train here however many days a
Oh,
week as
okay,
part
okay.
of our class, and they'll get an
And you get
athletic
credits
credit
for
with our
that.
school.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it was
And that's
kind
what
of
I
This is the
joined
guy who didn't
after.
go to college. So.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Yes, yeah. So it'd be like that.
Yeah, and that's
went
what I
to high
joined
school.
after.
Yeah.
Was like, yeah. See, trade school's good.
Yeah,
Trace
yeah.
school.
Oh, yeah.
know?
Do you remember like the
Oh,
first? Do you have any like memories of like your first class, first technique, first experience on the mat?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I remember. It's totally weird to think about now, but the one move I was so good at, because they made us start on our knees, right? And the cool move I was shown was grab both pant legs, stand up tall, and just flip them over.
Ooh.
And that was my move. Like, yeah, I might bust that out. I might bring that back in the
Try
class
that
one
on
day.
Tracy tomorrow.
The new meta right there.
I know. The BJJ fanatics.
I'm
be
gonna try
looking
that
for
Master
it.
Worlds this year.
Okay.
BJJ
We
fanatics.
call it the dinosaur stomp.
That's
Just
hilarious.
watch yourselves. Yeah.
Put a high price on that. On
yeah.
that
Gosh.
Y'all may be able to catch me on the cameras tomorrow trying that out on
Yeah,
someone.
I'll teach you.
Yeah.
It's fine. But no, I used to. It's funny now because I have notebooks full of techniques. I mean, X stroke. I'd have a whole page. You know, nowadays it's so it's so simple to understand and to know. But I have just journals full of stuff. And actually, my training partners used to make fun of me because they're like, "Oh, you and your stupid notebook, you again." Writing it all down. I was like, "I'm studying. I'm getting good,
Yeah.
right?" But But I don't know. I always was really partial to arm bars. I always loved arm bars. Still do. To me, it's the most satisfying submission to hit on somebody, especially when you catch it out of nowhere and they're like, "Where'd that come from?" So,
Yeah.
I like arm bars too. I'm not good at triangles.
not toe holds.
No, I don't even know how to do a toe hold.
Wow. What a noob.
Noob.
I don't think I'm allowed to do
compete?
those, though.
You
Yeah,
compete?
I do. They're not legal for me, Wesley, so I think it's fine for now.
Yeah, so
I got a belt or two before I'm allowed to toe hold anybody.
And I say, I'm a blue belt and I don't compete those techniques. So.
Yeah. I don't need those.
I need to do those.
I was doing them for a while in the beginning, like knee bars, but then when I started competing a whole bunch, I felt like it was counterproductive for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have an awareness of them,
Yeah.
but not make it obviously your game right now, you know?
What about like techniques that you train, like that you're working on right now, and that it's kind of like you're new, like, do you find yourself like going back to stuff that you were working on and refining that, or you like see a new detail?
Yeah. I was working with Roberto probably 2 or 3 weeks ago on my guard passing. And he was telling me, he's like, you're passing too linear, like too east and west, right? Like that. And he's like, just bring it back like a little southeast when you pass, and that'll help collapse their legs. And I've been going back to, and it's changed my passing. Just that tiny little, like, quit going so linear and just a little bit more south, and you'll start seeing openings that you haven't seen before. And sure enough, he's right again.
Sure enough. Isn't it annoying?
It's very
when they're
annoying.
right? Well, I think that's interesting because I've mentioned that to Wesley before, that like you'll learn something, the basics of something, and then you'll relearn it. Like there's something that I learned back, the way that we do it at our gym. Sometimes the upper belts will be training one thing, and then our white belts will split off and they'll be learning something different. And I will have learned something in white belt class, and then, a year and a half later, Roberto is now teaching the exact same thing, and I'm like, oh, I know this one. But there's like 1 or 2 little tiny details that I didn't either pick up on or recall, like I didn't remember them as well when I learned it the first time. And so it's so interesting how you can know it, you can know a skill and know how to do it, and then there's like one little detail or something that you pick up on, and it feels like brand new, and it changes the way that you've done it, even though it's something.
And then you wonder how you survived.
You're
like, how did I survive without this?
Yes.
Like, I specifically remember mine was reverse de la Riva. When I first learned it, I was like, I don't get it, number one. When am I going to use this crap? And now you're like, how on earth did I survive without that?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a just basic part of my game now. That's so easy now too. So, yeah.
What's your view on ecological training, like the new?
I love it. It's like Mario Party. That's what I tell the kids. Like, it's like Mario Party, where you just like, you're playing like little mini games, which everybody's always done like positional training before, right? But now it's just, okay, side control, but you have to keep the arm stapled, and the wrist stapled, and isolate the other arm. Like, it's so specific where you're not just like, okay, hold side control for 30 seconds, like, and you get nowhere with it. You don't learn anything. You just learn how to hold the guy down. So I think it's awesome. I think a lot of schools, like we've been doing, slowly like adopting it and implementing it in our training. Like, everybody should do it. It's fun too. It's like good cardio too.
Yeah.
When I actually started doing it myself instead of just teaching it, you're like, man,
yeah,
what's wrong with my cardio?
Yeah,
like,
right.
I know. You feel like you're dying after a few rounds, and it's like, wait a minute. We also did eco drills before we started rounds, so that counts as like 3 rounds.
It like feeds into your point about reverse de la Riva. Like if it had been eco drill when you first did it and like made you play it over and over again, you would have found the benefit in it, Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's why I like it so much, because like we did a game tonight with where you chain the front headlock to the single leg to the back take, and when would you ever be looking for that unless a coach like makes that and like sees that in their athletes that they need to be looking for this. So like it's like I do find it is harder. It puts more responsibility on the coach, like to like know their athletes, to build games around the skill development of their kids or adults, So that's one thing I noticed, like even with my girls, I'm like, I see them train a lot at the house and at home. So I'm like, what problems do they have, and how can I pull a skill out of them by creating a game? And it's hard. Sometimes you like do the game and it's like, that was a fail. Did not work. And then other times you make a game and you're like, wow, that was freaking awesome. They learned exactly what I wanted them to learn, and I didn't teach them a single technique. They did the thing that I was trying to pull out of them. But you feel like it's going well with ecological?
Yeah. And it's fun for me too to like be creative and think of like different games. And like you say, like try it, and sometimes it's perfect, and other times you're like, well, just ignore the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, right.
You know? So it's a different way to look at jiu-jitsu and train it, and it's like you say, it's like micro games. It's really, it's fun. I've been enjoying it a lot.
I don't know if you've seen the video on it, but the B team started adopting ecological training, and what's his name? Greg Saunders.
Yeah.
Right, Saunders, whatever, however you say his last name. He went out there to the B team, right?
Yeah.
I think I might have sent you some videos from it, but I
watched
watched all that. Yeah, and I was listening. They have a podcast apparently. I was listening to that today, and they've been doing a lot of high-stepping ecological games with it to implement, because I guess in actual fights and competition, he reverts back to his A game and never uses the actual stuff they drill constantly. And he drills it, but doesn't use it in the competition. So, but they said they've been seeing a lot of improvement on it from the ecological drills they've been doing, the CLA or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so I like it a lot.
Because I feel like there are lots of times when I'll feel like drilling something, I'm like, oh, I can do it. I got it. But then you go to do it in the live round, and it's like, okay, well, that doesn't work.
Back to my A game.
Exactly. And you know it's not because it doesn't work. It's obviously, user error on my part. But
just your part.
Yeah, just my part, always. Yes. But yeah, there's something different about doing it in a live roll versus.
What's your view on drilling versus ecological? Do you think drilling should have no place? Are you that far outside of the camp, or is it like a mix, or like we already established we like ecological, so.
Yeah, I think a mix of both is good. Like for me, I have to, when I'm first learning something, like man, there's your horror stories right there. When I was the world's worst blue belt and most impatient, just awful learner. When I first learned something, like nowadays I try to do it more on dummies. Yeah. Because then no one has to deal with my, my frustrations or anything. But I think a mix of both is really good. I think you do need some drilling just to learn basics.
The body mechanics of stuff.
Yeah, like how movement, like how to turn in the guard, how to break angles, like some of that stuff. I think you need a good foundation, and then I think you get the most out of ecological is if you have a good foundation. Like say you do an ecological drill and you're just flopping all over the place, you're not even doing basic jiu-jitsu correctly, like then this ecological drill is not correct either.
That's the argument that they make, though. They say that there's
wrong.
No correct way, right? There's not a correct technique. Like if you choke the neck and they tap, like that could have been done 100 different ways. Like I feel like he goes like so deep on one end. But I also, I'm on the camp. I agree 100% with drilling too. Like I think there should be drilling, not like only drilling. I think ecological. I think if you put like do a class and you have even brand new, never off the street, brand new, you pull them off the street, take a group of 10 and a group of 10, and you have this 10 drill a technique for the night, and you take this 10 and you do 3 games for the night. Who's going to learn more?
Ooh, we should do that experiment.
I think that the skill acquisition from the group of 10 who do ecological training versus one group who just drilled an armbar all night, and then I put a group over here and you put them in the armbar and you live drill them and you just tell them to hold it. What do they learn? They learn how to control this position. Even if they don't know how to finish it, they learn how to control the position. Then you put them you tell them to do the game where you're like one leg in, one leg out, and you tell them you have to fight for inside position and try to make your partner hit their butt.
Yeah.
That there are all kinds of skills they're building right there. And you've given them a task that they have to do, and it's like in their brain they say, okay, well in jiu-jitsu, I've learned that like getting them to their butt is like a positive thing,
Right.
But when you just drill a technique like armbar, nothing against it, I think it's really necessary, but you don't get the same skill acquisition in one session, you know what I mean?
I feel like it's nice though to have a baseline, just me personally, and I've said since early white belt days that everything that is correct is the exact opposite of my intuition in jiu-jitsu. Like what my mind and my body wants to do, I feel like it's always wrong. And so I feel like if I can just get a little instruction right out the gate, then that seems like it would cut down so much time in me trying to figure something out that just seems so counterintuitive that my brain isn't even going there.
And I agree with you, but I also play devil's advocate. The argument against it is like, if because I agree with that too, because sometimes there's like a shortcut to like, you know, elbow, wrist, hand. Like that gets stuck in your head. It's faster to use that technique now. But the argument against is like, I will, that's the hard part about the coaching part. That's why it puts more weight on the coach. Like, I have to build this out of you. And now when you make the mistake 10 times, when you learn and you figured it out, like what to do right, it's gonna be stuck in your head. That's the argument, at least. I'm not gonna say that's 100% accurate, but the argument is like, it'll stick in your head way longer and cemented in your mind if you had to find it and made the mistake. Right, we learn from our mistakes. Right?
I feel like that would be so hard as a coach.
I know.
To watch them do it wrong over and just waiting for them to figure it out.
Yeah, it's like coaching in a tournament where you're like, where you're just like, what are you doing?
What
are we doing right now?
It's so frustrating. If there's anything I learned during COVID, it's that I'm not a good teacher. And I just think that would drive me absolutely crazy when I know what you're doing wrong.
And again, like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate. Take it from me, who drills all the time at the house.
All the time.
I drill constantly. I'm always studying, so I'm definitely not against it. I think they both have their place 100%. So that's my camp on it. But I mean, I think I've seen the kids. I mean, you feel like the kids have been growing from it?
Yeah, I like it too for the kids, especially because it keeps them busy. They don't, you know, they don't get bored. They have little games. Like today, we did an underhook drill with like, you know, our animal underhook drill, and they all took to it. And it was just a hidden eco game of like figuring out what is an underhook in our beginner class. What is an underhook? And it was just easy, and they all got it, and they did it right away when they started rolling too. I saw kids fishing for underhooks more than before, you know, so I think it's great. I think schools should really, you know, I think all schools should evolve in general. Like as times change, you have to change too, or you know, or get left behind, you know, really. That's true. You know, and like we say, it's like that's ego coming into play, saying my way is the best way and how I've done it forever is correct, and forget all this new school garbage. Like no, like you have to be open to that. You have to be open to it. You know? And like we're saying too, like learning from, as a black belt, I learned from blue belts. I learn, you know, I see these kids, you know, like JP Tran and all these new kids coming up from like AOJ. Like I study their stuff; they're incredible, you know, and you learn from them.
I just learned a false route from JP Tran this week.
Yeah, you learned that from me.
Oh, I learned the false route from you, 100%. No, that's true. That is facts.
Which I totally ripped off from Craig Jones, so it's fine.
No, because we drilled it over and over again. You started the branch, and so like, I knew I had seen JP Tran do it. He's like, that's like his thing.
Yeah.
But I hadn't learned how to do it yet, you know. But now I'm like, I'm on the branch of false reaping, so y'all watch out. I'm gonna false reap y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No.
Any hot takes?
Hot takes. Oh God.
My hot take is, you shouldn't be talking, socializing when you're in the middle of freaking rolling. That's my hot take.
First of all, I don't think that's a hot take. I think a lot of people would agree with you.
Okay, whenever the round starts and now it's 4 minutes left and it was a 6-minute round and you're still conversating.
Weslee,
just get off the mat and watch us professionals.
No, okay. First of all, you're not a professional. And second of all, I get plenty of rolls in, but also it is very important for us to have our girly community within the gym. It is important. Yeah. It's important that we grow our community of women in the sport. And if that means that we have to have, if that means that we need to go over what happened in our days in the middle of a roll, or have a spontaneous sing-along with whatever music, yes, or a little jig as
90% of y'all watching who are jiu-jitsu practitioners, are agreeing with me.
I know everybody does, and I know it can be annoying, but I also like to think, I may be wrong in this, that I have somewhat of a pulse. Like there's people that I'm going to talk with while I roll, and there's people I'm not going to talk as much with.
But you're just going to talk with them
when I roll.
Oh my gosh.
I'll probably talk a little bit.
That's probably the most common irritation when we roll.
Sorry.
It's like, can we just freaking roll already?
Well, my most common irritation is that you hurt me all the time.
The shins are bony.
I know.
Get good.
You know what, Weslee? Tracy just told me this past week that you, in fact, have very bony shins, and when you staple things and it hurts her also. And I said that she needs to tell you this because I say it, and you think I'm being dramatic. I'm not.
So you're telling me when I'm passing somebody's guard, it's supposed to feel good? It's not supposed to be...
No, but you should be aware of your training partners.
You're not helping yourself right now.
This isn't Muay Thai.
Oh, I'm very aware of their bones and the damage I'm doing to them. That's the point.
Okay, well, when it's your wife, I would appreciate
it
if you
would. I have to show.
If you would pull the wife card.
I did.
Know.
Yep.
Golly, you're sleeping on the couch tonight. I guess to close this out, I have a final question. What do you think is something, all three of us will give what we think. What is something that sets our gym apart from other gyms? Gosh. It doesn't have to be super deep either. It could just be like, I have like a thing that I've cross-trained a lot, so I have a thing that I think sets us apart that I like a lot.
I always like that whatever I ask Roberto, he either has an answer or he's going to find the answer. Mm-hmm. And he never gives me like, oh, this is the answer, and he steers you off, and you're like, you know that he doesn't have an answer. He's very, like, we're very upfront about if we don't know it, we're gonna learn it, and we're gonna study it, and we're gonna master it like now, because there's so much coming out right now. But it's like with him, I've always said, this is my problem and my role, and instantly he's like, well, number one, get good, is usually the comment, which is a short and sweet answer, and it's so correct because you know what? Go study. He's always said, have you been studying? Is your cardio good? Have you been lifting? How's your diet? And if you can't check all those boxes, it's like, well, ouch. All right.
Okay.
So I think like that, like he's just so good at jiu-jitsu. And if you've ever rolled with him and ever felt the Roberto smash, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, so if you don't ever feel like you've literally never learned anything and
that's
you're
what I tell
not
him
strong,
too.
you have no muscles, you're just like a baby lamb.
That's what I told him too.
By a boulder.
Like when we roll and he's just killing me, I was like, clearly you've never taught me anything in 18 years because I can't do anything.
Exactly.
So,
right.
What's your take?
Well, you're gonna I'll go last. What you have? What do you think separates? I mean, you haven't done a whole lot of cross training or anything.
I just knew he was gonna. I feel like that was a secret little jab right there. Yeah,
boxing.
That's exactly what that
was.
Bro. I don't know. I like our structure for adult classes. Like I like how we, drill or learn a technique, but then there's no end time to how long people are here. I think that that's fairly uncommon in the other gyms that I've been to. Which I think is nice. I think it allows people to train as much as they want, but it also allows people to take breaks. For people who are brand new, I think sometimes it's hard to go like 4 or 5 rounds in a row with like a 1-minute break, and
that I disagree with.
I'm sure
less puke for me to clean.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think Tracy's in my camp on that too.
I'm not saying that that's not.
Get your 4 rounds in
be
and go
able to
if you
do
can't
that.
handle it.
I don't disagree with you. But if it makes somebody stay and keep working because they have more time,
that's fine. But you also have to learn to regulate your output. Like if you can't go full blast if you know that that's your cardio. Like chill. You can like move through. You don't have to go full blast. Like even if you're dying in side control, like try to escape side control.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
That's an interesting thing. Totally off topic, but seeing, in the age of Instagram, you see everybody's highlight reels and how people like will pass the guard, and you see a 10-second clip. So you get this idea that I have to go fast. I have to pass this guy's guard in like 10 seconds to be like Tynan, to be like these, monsters out there. But then when you really go back and watch the footage, you're like, wait a minute, it took him 8 minutes and 45 seconds and the 10-minute match, and he finally cut through and got his points.
That was the entire match that he couldn't pass, and he passed.
Exactly. And that little clip is after almost 10 minutes of work.
Nice.
So I think that's also important for people when they're studying, is to like, highlight reels are cool, but watching full matches are more important, really, to see how they got there and what they had to go through to get to that. Because you see all these highlights and you're like, man, this guy just smokes everybody. But you're like, wait a minute, his match was like 2-2, 2 advantages, and he barely squeaked out a win, So you see how it's just a little bit closer to you.
Yeah, 100%. No, that was good. You kind of took mine, but...
How did I take yours when you just ragged all over mine and said it was the wrong answer?
No, I ragged on one tiny part about your answer, which was I don't like when people just rest on the side. Like I think get your rounds in. Okay?
I agree with that, but I also think that's a personal.
Let me preface it though too. Like I'm not saying like when the night's over and we're done and we are socializing at the end and we're talking about technique and it's a culture thing. You know what I mean? I think every gym not every gym, because that's the thing that I think sets us apart. All the gyms I have cross-trained at, there's always an end time. Like it ends and everyone leaves and the doors they're gone quick. And that makes sense because like a lot of people, the coaches or instructors are like, they want to get home. Yeah. But y'all are kind of like night owls. So like that's what I like about it.
You don't have lives outside.
I can.
Thanks, Bailey. Tell the world.
I'm just kidding.
No, they just stay here for such a long time. Like, I love being able to train until I'm depleted and dead. I think that's a big mat time, you know, like that's a big component to getting good. You know, the more mat time you get, the better you get. You know what I mean? If you're doing properly, you know. So that's one thing I love is like go through the technique and then you can literally roll for 2 hours, like pretty much if you wanted to, you know. And usually, I remember whenever I first started being one of the few last on the mat, you're like, okay, I'm one of the few. I'm one of the few.
Part of the club.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah, who's like putting in the rounds. But no, like I know whenever like Saturday class and you're like, at least do your 4 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Do your 4 rounds, guys. Don't just leave after 1-2 rounds. Like push through.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Because cardio is king. Yeah. Roberto will tell you that too. He's like, you can be the best guy in the world, and you don't have any cardio and you gas after 10 minutes. You got nothing, you know?
And you don't even really know how good or bad your cardio is until you're in a tournament, because one match at a tournament is very, very different. I mean, you can feel way more gassed after one than after rolling like 7 rounds here, you know? So even if you're like, oh, I think it's pretty good. I think I'm good on my cardio. You don't think
just wait.
You're probably not.
And
it's probably not
piggy
good.
tail off of what you
Piggy
said.
Piggy tail.
Piggy tail on the
back. Go watch episode 1, the inside scoop on the piggy tail. All right. So no, but to piggyback off of what you were saying too about Roberto always having an answer, that is so true. I didn't think about that, but I have been to few, not many, maybe one, not even very many at all. But like where you see a technique that's being taught and you're like, that literally goes against everything I've ever been taught. Like it doesn't make sense to me at all. And you're like, yeah, you know, this guy's like he's not bad black belt or anything, but like what is being taught right now? But you know, the ones I've gone to that were like that, they were the one time I went there. I didn't continue going there over and over again. But there's, you know, that is, Roberto's unique. I've rolled with a lot of different instructors. I mean, everyone has their own special sauce or style, you know, for each gym. But Roberto's very unique to our gym, and man, he puts the pressure on and is very smart, but always has an answer, and it always makes sense. Like, okay, that totally makes sense, you know, like whenever you ask a question. So
why didn't I see that before?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, I think both of you are really good about that, and being present and willing to help all the time. Like, you know, and, you know, we're talking about there not being an end time and everybody's here. I feel like a lot of times there gets to that point where people are starting to clear out, and then it becomes a time of like questions, or I keep running into this, or can you help me with this? And both of y'all are always, I'm always so appreciative that if I'm lost or like I keep running into something constantly, that I know I can be like, Tracy, help.
Well, it's like he and I also see jiu-jitsu very differently. You know, it's very complementary too, where he can go just deep water into this analysis and all these little details that like, maybe I'm just not smart enough for jiu-jitsu, but like, I'm like, I need the A, B, and C step. Like, what is, you know, step 1, 2, 3, that is how my brain operates. And then later I can plug in all the little details, but it's like, you know, he's so smart at jiu-jitsu, and I'm just maybe dumb at jiu-jitsu.
You're right. I mean, I just, even watching Roberto teach just sometimes cracks me up, because every single movement of every finger and toe, it's so intentional. And I don't understand how his brain works that way, but every detail is so specific and intentional and spot on.
Whereas when I teach a scissor sweep, it's like, Okay, put your elbow inside like a hamburger, right?
Yes, your arm is the meat.
Yes, inside, not meat bun. Middle, like a burger.
That's not a hamburger.
Yes,
That'd
clearly.
be a weird burger.
Yeah.
I tend to be on the Roberto camp on the detail. When it comes to the sports, like detail oriented.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I like both though. Because I think, like I was saying before, I think sometimes it's helpful to learn the skill and be like, oh, okay, I know how to do that. And if I were to be taught every single tiny little detail that first time, I'm not going to remember any of it. Right. It's going to be like in one ear, out the other. And it'll be one of those things that a few months later, I'll go, wait a minute, I learned something about this before, but I don't remember it. But sometimes just getting it enough that you have the skill. Yeah. And then you can like refine the details, and those stick better because you already have like the basic mechanics.
You're like, I have a hamburger, but now I have like a cheeseburger.
Exactly. Now I have the cheeseburger, and maybe later we can add some ketchup or mayonnaise or whatever condiment.
All this food talk, man, making me hungry.
I know, it's dinner
yet,
time.
man.
Okay.
Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Yes.
Moral of the story?
Thank you.
Get good.
Get good.
Get good,
Eat
guys.
some food.
That's right. Yay.
All right, guys. That's Weslee Weighs In.